None of this happened overnight. A domino effect. Problem-solution tactics. Spying agencies grew bigger and they became more advanced. The typical false flag attacks to create fear, a sense of nationalism, extreme hatred for the enemy, a false war on terror. It's not just for the hundreds of millions of innocent Muslims around the world. It's for everyone. For those of you who don't comply or serve the will of the world government today, you are monitored in ways I can't even begin to explain. They call you traitors, terrorists, dissidents. Executive orders have been signed over the years that authorize the use of lethal force against you, the authority to detain you indefinitely. Proxy wars through the use of artificial intelligence and terrorism, economic sanctions, war rhetoric. It has become common in our time. But with the latest revelations of AI being used by intelligence agencies, the mobilization of forces within the United States and all over the world, we have to start asking some questions. Has Big Brother, that was depicted in the Orwellian future in 1984, spun out of control?
I started to realize that it's just a data collection point, that they're collecting and storing as much data off the internet and telephone networks that they can.
Who are the Five Eyes? And has artificial intelligence given them the ultimate scrying ball and technology they needed to form minority reports and log us on virtual kill lists and in future FEMA prison camps? Is the U.S. Department of Homeland Security partnering with international entities to prepare for martial law in the United States? In this documentary series, we are about to uncover a nefarious plan that presumably leads to an international globalist takeover of the United States and other Western countries on this planet. And they deem you to be so simple-minded that you will stay ignorant to all of this. They deem you to be so simple-minded that you should just go ahead and surrender all your rights as a human being over to them.
And for the international order that we have worked for generations to build. Ordinary men and women are too small-minded to govern their own affairs. That order and progress can only come when individuals surrender their rights to an all-powerful sovereign.
For over 3 decades, everyone has been talking about Big Brother. They believe that it would all lead to martial law and concentration camps. It's hard for any American to imagine concentration camps on American soil in this so-called 21st century democracy. The notorious gulags of Russia, the concentration camps of Nazi Germany. But it has happened before on American soil, where U.S. President Franklin D. Roosevelt rounded up hundreds of thousands of Japanese Americans under Executive Order 9066.
What would you do if government officials knocked on your door and said you had 1 week to pack up your belongings and move to a government-run camp?
When the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor, our west coast became a potential combat zone. Living in that zone were more than 100,000 persons of Japanese ancestry. 2/3 of them American citizens, 1/3 aliens. We knew that some among them were potentially dangerous. Most were loyal. But no one knew what would happen among this concentrated population if Japanese forces should try to invade our shores. Military authorities therefore determined that all of them, citizens and aliens alike, would have to move.
Japanese Americans were given a week to evacuate their homes and report to an assembly center. They were allowed to bring only the baggage they could carry. Many sold valuable personal possessions for pennies on the dollar. More than 100,000 people eventually relocated to the camps. About 2/3 were American citizens. Living conditions in the camps were difficult and sometimes harsh. Many residents lived in large barracks. Meals were served in mess halls, and the camps were ringed by barbed wire and armed guards. The U.S. Supreme Court upheld the legality of the internment camps, and the policy remained in place for nearly 3 years.
Democracy is tyranny. The American government has established laws that permit the most extreme and perverse liberties today, while at the same time stripping away God-given human freedoms. The U.S. military has actively and with the most extreme force propagated this form of tyranny on nations all over the world. Sitting here now in 2018, it's clear to say that the world government has far surpassed the imaginations of authors who have propagated totalitarian agendas, like what was depicted in George Orwell's 1984, and especially those implemented by the Nazi Third Reich. These writers are critical to their campaigns of terror. They are the pen behind them, the word that controls the populations and gathers them toward their destructive cause. Writers such as the infamous Jesuit ghost priest known as Father Stempfel, who helped Adolf Hitler write Mein Kampf, the very book that was used to take complete control over Germany. It's strange flash-forwarding to today and reading articles on AOL titled, "Hitler Expert Says President Trump Pulls from Mein Kampf to Normalize Tyranny." The Independent also released an article claiming that Donald Trump is using Mein Kampf as a playbook. But what isn't strange, and it's actually perfectly clear, there is a connection between Jesuit speechwriters and initiating tyranny.
Thomas Paine wrote the pamphlet Common Sense, and it is stated, if you study historians relate that the pamphlet Common Sense was the writing that brought about the Declaration of Independence. In fact, Thomas Paine uses that phrase in Common Sense.
Paine wrote that nothing can settle our affairs so expeditiously as an open and determined declaration for independence.
What's interesting is that Thomas Paine at that point was not even an American citizen. He was an Englishman. He was in England, and he met Benjamin Franklin.
Paine also published the Crisis Pamphlet series, which were read aloud by George Washington to his troops. On Paine's tombstone is written that Common Sense was the pamphlet that stirred the American colonies to independence. It reads that John Adams said, "Without the pen of Paine, the sword of Washington would have been wielded in vain." Then below it reads, "History is to ascribe the American Revolution to Thomas Paine."
So right there on his tombstone, they're openly ascribing the American Revolution to Thomas Paine and saying that at a literary level, at the level of setting forth a philosophy and the ideas, Paine's contribution was equal to that of George Washington, really.
Once the revolution was over, Paine then published his true thoughts about Christianity and the Bible. He wrote, "When I see throughout the greater part of this book, the Bible, scarcely anything but a history of the grossest vices and a collection of the most paltry and contemptible tales, I cannot dishonor my Creator by calling it by his name." While some have accused Paine of being an atheist, his defenders are quick to point out that he most certainly believed in a God, just not the God of the Bible.
It's no wonder that some of the U.S. presidents of our time, who were known for secretly holding these ambitions, have signed executive orders to make these things possible, and they all had Jesuit speechwriters. Nixon, Reagan, the Bushes, and Obama, placing all of the buttons on the table for Donald Trump. But he's stable enough to not push them, right?
Now, I don't know that we're going to make a deal. I don't know. We might not. But it would be much easier for me to be so tough. The tougher I am on Russia, the better. But you know what? I want to do the right thing for the American people. And to be honest, secondarily, I want to do the right thing for the world. If Russia and the United States actually got together and got along, and don't forget, we're a very powerful nuclear country, and so are they. There's no upside. We're a very powerful nuclear country, and so are they. I've been briefed, and I can tell you one thing about a briefing that we're allowed to say because anybody that ever read the most basic book can say it. Nuclear holocaust would be like no other. They're a very powerful nuclear country, and so are we.
We have to ask, is this 21st century democracy moving towards a 21st century Inquisition? Did the Third Reich really end, or did a more deceptive and sinister Fourth Reich begin?
Lately, there's been a lot of rhetoric comparing certain politicians to Adolf Hitler. The concern, supposedly, is that a Nazi-style regime may be rising in America. That process, folks, however, began a long time ago. In fact, following World War II, the U.S. government actually recruited Hitler's employees, adopted his protocols, embraced his mindset about law and order, slowly implemented his tactics, and began to lay the foundations for the rise of the Fourth Reich. Sound far-fetched? Well, listen up, folks. It's all documented. As historian Robert Gelately recounts, the Nazi police state was initially so admired for its efficiency and order by the world powers of the day that Herbert Hoover, then head of the FBI, actually sent one of his right-hand men, Edmund Patrick Coffey, to Berlin in January 1938 at the invitation of Germany's secret police, the Gestapo. The FBI was so impressed with the Nazi regime that, according to the New York Times, in the decades after World War II, the FBI, along with other government agencies, aggressively recruited at least 1,000 Nazis, including some of Hitler's highest henchmen. All told, thousands of Nazi collaborators, including the head of a Nazi concentration camp, among others, were given secret visas and brought to America by way of a program called Project Paperclip.
The militarization of local and state police forces, orchestrated by an intense, highly complex spying apparatus being operated by some of the most advanced technology and artificial intelligence out there, is becoming more intrusive and far-reaching each day. Biometric recognition systems, satellites, drones, cameras, malicious malware on smart devices, millions of agents roaming the world, and since around 2010, an era of AI that has grown at an alarming rate, nearing the point of no return.
Remember Total Information Awareness, the program that was led by John Poindexter, the old shadow warrior under the government administration of Reagan and on down through the years? You know, it was set up after 9/11, supposedly to catch terrorists by spying on all Americans completely. Here's their really creepy logo you may have seen that shows an all-seeing eye on top of a pyramid looking at the entire globe with its gaze.
The thing that's most dangerous is, and it's the hardest to kind of wrap, kind of get your arms around because it's not a physical thing, is kind of a deep intelligence in the network. He said, well, what harm could a deep intelligence in the network do? He said, well, it could start a war by doing fake news and spoofing email accounts and fake press releases, and just by manipulating information. The pen is mightier than the sword.
Basically collecting all that data. Microsoft, Google, Yahoo, Facebook, Paltalk, YouTube, Skype, AOL, Apple, and this is what they're getting. They're getting emails, video and voice chats, videos, photos, stored data, file transfers, you name it.
You can feel it. They are watching you, hearing you, analyzing you, gathering and storing the most personal information about you, producing algorithms that predict potential outcomes of your habits, your moves, your associations, and your whereabouts with alarming accuracy. You are a virtual prisoner in a digital enslavement camp you don't even know about.
Bill Gates, they said he's concerned about it. Elon Musk said it's akin to summoning the demon. Do you think you're building the thing that will enslave us all, or do you have a rosier outlook?
I was just waiting for when this question was going to get asked.
Got to give the people what they want.
So I'm glad that these questions are coming up, because I do think this is going to be an issue down the road.
Peter Thiel, chairman of Palantir, president of Clarion Capital, board member of Facebook, owner of a lot of cryptocurrency, and co-founder of PayPal. The list goes on and on.
How's everything at Bilderberg?
It's good.
He is one of the reasons this has gone too far today, and he is one of the biggest traitors to the American people and people all over the world. It's his blockchain technology that gave intelligence services access to everything they need, making Minority Report look more like a future documentary than a science fiction movie.
Okay, Jad, what's coming? Double homicide, 1 male, 1 female. Killer's male, white, 40s. Set up a perimeter and tell them we're en route.
I'm placing you under arrest for the future murder of Sarah Marks.
Give the man his hat.
With President Obama launching an offensive to take down the Islamic State and terror threats rising in Europe, Australia, and potentially right here in the United States, could technology be the key to stopping the next major attack? PayPal co-founder and venture capitalist Peter Thiel, the co-founder of another company called Palantir, certainly thinks so. I spoke with Thiel about the technology behind Palantir and whether it could help stop the next 9/11. Take a listen. Do you think that Palantir could stop the next 9/11, or has it already?
Something like Palantir is the key to stopping major terrorist attacks. I don't think we're going to do it by projecting military force throughout the world. I think we will do it by sort of very cleverly uncovering these conspiracies before they come together.
Some have expressed concern that your clients could actually use Palantir to do evil things. Do you worry about that?
The CIA, NSA, FBI, and other intelligence services around the world are looking to Thiel and Palantir to do their spying on the citizens of the world today. His work with U.S. President Donald Trump is becoming more and more apparent.
One of the things I really want to illustrate to you as a viewer of how serious this is that Peter Thiel's company Palantir sells the intelligence software to the CIA, the FBI, the NSA, the Center for Missing and Exploited Children, untold law enforcement agencies, financial institutions. Peter Thiel is the frontrunner to become the chair of the President's Intelligence Advisory Board, a meta-intelligence entity that functions independently from the nation's spy agencies. So it looks like this man is being promoted to chair the President's new secret spy agency after he dismantles the Five Eyes.
The Five Eyes Alliance was created in the aftermath of World War II to monitor enemy communications and share intelligence between its founding nations. It is now recognized as the largest spying network in history.
So they were sitting there, how can we justify our existence? So you look around and say, well, there's this explosion in digital communications. And there's bad guys in there doing things. So this is our new target. In order to keep up with it, we have to have an ever-increasing budget. We need more and more people. That's how you build an empire.
It was going in this direction anyway, but 9/11 incredibly accelerated it. And so we accelerated our ability, our, for want of a better word, invasiveness into communications networks.
The United States and Britain completely dropped all their sense of restraint about it. And these agencies are closer to each other than they are to their own government.
Once you adopt these totalitarian procedures, I mean, this is straight out of the KGB, Stasi, Gestapo, SS, you know, Mao's people, everybody. All the dictators and despots down through history do this kind of thing. And so once you adopt that, then you have to do in secret, pass laws or change things and suppress your population and keep them from knowing what you're doing. And so you have an uninformed public.
The Five Eyes, this supranational intelligence organization, the one Edward Snowden warned was monitoring billions of private communications worldwide, now has Peter Thiel and other private corporations at the helm, providing technologies that the governments can't even fully understand themselves, opening doors to control and oversight that the global elite could only dream of. It truly is like an AI scrying ball. That's what US President Donald Trump and Saudi King Salman were putting their hands on. Peter Thiel's Palantir Ball, at the grand opening of a new spying agency that has been set up in the futuristic city being built in Saudi Arabia. It's called NEOM.
This landmark agreement includes the announcement of a $110 billion Saudi-funded defense purchase. And we will be sure to help our Saudi friends to get a good deal from our great American defense companies, the greatest anywhere in the world. This agreement will help the Saudi military to take a far greater role in security and operations having to do with security. We have also started discussions with many of the countries present today on strengthening partnerships and forming new ones to advance security and stability across the Middle East and far beyond. Later today, we will make history again with the opening of the new Global Center for Combating Extremist Ideology, located right here in this central part of the Islamic world.
This agency will not just be spying on quote-unquote Islamic radicals, but everyone, launching an all-out intelligence war on man using AI. And now, credible scientists, researchers, and experts warn that this could soon get out of hand. A total enslavement, at least now we can say in the virtual world. But hey, isn't that where we spend the majority of our time? There are those who will say this will impact our lives outside the virtual prison. The prequel to The Matrix, The Animatrix, an animated series, warned us about the future of AI battling with mankind. And though we are only talking about intelligence agencies, the reason why The Animatrix is so shocking, this was released in the early 2000s, and the location they chose for the machines to build an AI city that would enslave man through consumerism, the markets, spying, and then eventually launching full-scale war on man, was a location on the Earth that was completely unexpected.
The leaders of men were quick to order the extermination of B166ER and every one of his kind throughout each province of the Earth.
Androids and liberal sympathizers flooded the streets of the nation's capital today in protest of the sentence.
15,000 domestic mechanicals and their machines sought refuge in their own promised land. They settled in the cradle of human civilization, and thus a new nation was born.
The exact location of Palantir's new spying agency in Saudi Arabia, which just happens to be sovereign and has nothing to do with Saudi Arabia anyway. And while Peter Thiel's technology is enabling the globalists to apply the most invasive and extreme forms of control over us, he is spending millions of dollars on building mega bunkers under the ground in one of his home countries, the Netherlands, along with other elite in the know.
You're in the middle of nowhere, rural Kansas, the site of an abandoned nuclear missile silo. Armed security patrol the entrance to a doomsday bunker that's reserved for the wealthy elite, and sales are booming.
Since the election of Donald Trump, we've seen a whole new demographic of
people calling in, people that didn't know we existed before.
Larry Hall is the owner of the Survival Condo Project. These 16,000-pound doors lock you inside. We're heading deep below the surface of the Earth into an underground bunker like no other.
We are in a typical full-floor residential unit, and even though we are more than 100 feet underground right now, you can see that it's certainly not a claustrophobic area.
12 luxurious condos exist here with fireplaces, high-end appliances, jacuzzis, even windows. Yes, windows. High-definition TVs broadcast a live feed of the outside world right into your living room. The price tag for this 3-bedroom, 2-bath condo, $2.3 million.
Well, as the sign says, welcome to the beach.
And look at this. It's a swimming pool with a slide and waterfall. Other common areas include a movie theater, rock climbing wall, and shooting range. There's even a farm that grows all the fresh fruits and vegetables you'll need.
This could grow up to 70 different species of plants, lettuces, tomatoes, carrots.
The bunker runs on power sources like wind and diesel generators.
We have enough fuel to run these diesels for 2.5 years.
Plenty of time to ride out worldwide chaos should it ever erupt.
What is happening that is making them go underground? What are they planning? What has their technology allowed them to know about the coming future? If there really is a nefarious plan to take over the world and plans to unleash utter destruction, what will happen if they catch up to those of us who try to survive and protect our loved ones? Those who stand up, speak out, fight against, and now we see with the technology they have, even think against this new global government. What are they planning for those people? We'll leave that up for you to decide. But consider this your briefing.
This is part of a long-term societal slide. We're not becoming a police state. We're not in danger of being under globalist rule. We're already here. Hundreds of newspapers come out and say, Jones said that the military would take over and have martial law for Obama this summer. Not what we said. We said Jade Helm, infiltrating police departments, practicing taking over America, interfacing to condition the public, was part of a long-term strategic plan to sell the military on this new unconstitutional mission. That's what this 10-state operation, it was 8 states, is all about, is finding out who will work with them during a martial law takeover. Most of the military is not involved in this. Notice it's special operations, Navy SEALs, Green Berets, Delta Force, and others that are running this because they're the ones historically that I've run up against doing this. You have massive military gear being cached, armored vehicles, machine guns, helicopters, night vision, Humvees, with the police departments around the country. California has gotten the majority of it, along with Oklahoma and other areas to population. Texas has gotten double what California's gotten, and we have 10 million less than them. Oklahoma got basically double what California got, even though the crime rates are very low. A stability police force for the United States, RAND Corporation. This is the martial law plan. Feds preparing to invade Texas, list state as hostile. They are preparing, not saying they're going to invade or take over. They are preparing for the takeover. And that's in the John Warner Defense Authorization Act of 96, 97. They admit for insurrection by legislatures and governors. U.S. Army in a time of transition, foreign affairs moving to control the U.S., and then NATO has contingents of our Army and military inside of it. So the U.S. only gets to police itself under the UN treaties, State Department Memorandum 7277. So it's a 1963 plan. It's finally being implemented. Homeland Security, International Business Times, refutes conspiracies about 1.6 billion ammo. And then they go on to say, oh, we're not buying it for you and it's not unusual. It's now up to 3 billion rounds. And paper targets of children and women is what Homeland Security requested. Military says no presidential authorization needed to quell civil disturbances. Go read that report. And then they try to deny that's what this is all about. SEAL veteran, military leaders being asked if they will disarm veterans. Benjamin Smith, highly decorated Navy SEAL. Boom. Talking to top generals. Let's continue. Gonna listen to believe him, or are you gonna believe the globalist?
Black Hawk helicopters swarming the skies over U.S. cities. A mobilization of U.S. military equipment that hasn't been seen since World War II.
railhead in the region. So we service not only Port Irwin, but we also service 29 Palms, Camp Pendleton.
The scale of U.S. domestic operations since 2010 is off the charts. Training operations taking place all over the country with the pretense of training for overseas combat, but it has become clear to investigators and Americans alike, they are training for martial law.
First up, it's all eyes on the sky. Live pictures now from Phoenix. For the second night in a row, military training exercises are underway around the valley. And within the last half hour, the Phoenix Police Department has confirmed to 3TV that they are supporting Department of Defense training around the city.
As you take a look at some of the buildings downtown, what witnesses here are saying is that they were actually flying amongst the buildings, and now we know why. In fact, Phoenix PD confirming for us that the Department of Defense is conducting training exercises, trying to get military personnel certified in urban operations.
Urban operations. And you were looking at footage of a massive martial law type military drill in Florida. This took place in downtown Fort Lauderdale. You can see the scale of this. Choppers everywhere, they're rounding people up in the streets. Downtown Miami saw the same thing. Not this big a scale, just a few choppers. Never marching people around in the street like this.
The Jade Helm exercise is a 3-month-long training program involving 1,200 service members, including special forces from all 4 branches and Marine Expeditionary Forces, taking place across several southwestern states, primarily Texas. However, the little-known public knowledge has spawned several conspiracy theories, like using the exercise to lay groundwork for martial law, the wholesale confiscation of guns, and plans to convert old Walmarts into American concentration camps.
It is known that America has incarcerated more people than any other nation in the world. Prisons are already full to the brim.
If you look at the newest statistics, I think some of the findings are pretty jarring. In fact, we have 6.9 million people in the United States that are either in prison. 6.9 million people in the United States that are either in prison, on parole, or on probation.
So who will be there for the millions of dissidents who will oppose these global initiatives if they take place? FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, helping people before, during, and after disasters. It was believed that FEMA was put in place to help victims of natural disasters. But Hurricanes Katrina and Harvey were examples that proved this couldn't be further from the truth.
36 hours and they never came, and we was waiting at the home. We did the white flags and everything and nobody came, but then somebody had called the phone after we decided to leave the house, and we had walked to the gas station with the kids, and then they had called and came and picked us up.
Barack Obama came here, he promised us a whole lot, and he's delivered very little. We're out of our homes, and he's delivering a crappy FEMA trailer.
Taking these trailers off of the wheels, setting them in place. Got a $200,000 house sitting there with a $150,000 FEMA trailer in the driveway.
Yeah, I mean, what are we doing spending all this time and effort, 5 months after the disaster, to build a manufactured home and set it in somebody's front yard?
I mean, this is a catastrophe. And then they're forcing the people that apply for these FEMA trailers, they're forcing the flood victim to go out and borrow the money to fix their house. Meanwhile, giving them a $150,000 manufactured home to live in that they're going to take in 18 months.
How much pressure were you put under to produce those trailers?
Oh, incredible amount of pressure.
Working production and the way they were paid, it was about getting the units out the door. Once the units were out the door, they became quality control's problem, and the pressure to get them fixed, to make them appear to be correct, was tremendous. When you first started, it was about doing the right thing for the right people. But by the halfway through, you knew it wasn't about that anymore.
Well, what
it was about
was it
how
about?
much money Gulfstream was going to make.
Police, open the door! They had AR-15s or M16s. They were pointing at us.
They told us, put your hands up in the air. Let us see your hands.
They're drawing down on me, and they let the looters run rampant for over a week? Are you kidding me?
I really thought they were going to kill me. I really did.
They didn't care what your rights were. They were going to deny them.
You're letting the thugs get away with everything, and you're coming to honest, good citizens and taking away their protection, and it is wrong. Wrong. Wrong.
But still, the order had been given for police and National Guard to go house to house, often with guns drawn, to evacuate residents and confiscate their firearms.
No one will be able to be armed. We will take all weapons.
It was a human drama with emotions and tensions running high. Patty Connie is still trying to recover physically and emotionally.
They really did a number on me.
From the day police forced her from her home.
All that money and training, and they can't even get right a few weeks out of the year. How are they investing their money and time in training? This was exposed back in the early 80s. FEMA was established in 1979. It was not accepted by Congress, so U.S. President Jimmy Carter signed an executive order and made the Americans accept it anyway. Experts argue that natural disasters are just a cover for FEMA's real purpose, being an agency working for the Department of Homeland Security, along with multiple federal agencies, in conjunction with international entities.
Today in New Orleans, they got a lot tougher on the holdouts.
Police department, everyone home!
Not only the flooded areas, but New Orleans' driest and wealthiest neighborhoods, too.
Police department!
The police and National Guard going street by street, house to house.
We need to make sure, too, that whenever we knock on doors, people refuse to leave. We need to make note, call it in.
They say there are no orders to use force, just strong persuasion, sometimes entering open houses with guns drawn, and instructions to disarm anyone inside. That happened today in this wealthy neighborhood where homeowners had armed themselves to protect their mansions. Residents were handcuffed on the ground. In the end, police took their weapons but let them stay in their homes. For many of the police and guard troops, it is an uncomfortable job to do this in an American city. This guard unit occupied a church, using it as a base camp. They had to leave a note because they could not get hold of the pastor to get permission.
It is surreal. Yeah, you never expect to do this in your own country.
Chris Montgomery says he'd rather be in Iraq than patrolling American neighborhoods.
Walking up and down these streets, you don't want to think about the stuff that you're going to have to do if somebody pops around the corner.
We shoot in America.
Yeah.
And it is said they have a sinister plan to assume control over the United States. But is there any truth to it?
It's expected to keep getting stronger. And because of that, the storm surge prediction is now up to 6 to 12 feet right near the path and just north of the path of the eye wall. Flash flood watches over inland areas, hurricane warnings in effect, Port Lavaca down to Corpus Christi and south of that. Here's the official forecast track from the National Hurricane Center.
We shall propose further cooperative efforts between all the nations in weather prediction, and eventually in weather control. We shall propose, finally, a global systems of communication satellites.
Thanks to a system of satellites, natural disasters have become a thing of the past. We can control our weather.
Mr. President, one of our thermospheric satellites malfunctioned over Afghanistan.
This wasn't a malfunction.
No matter what they're truly up to, FEMA plays a crucial role. In the 80s, Dick Cheney and Donald Rumsfeld discussed emergency detention powers as part of a secret program planning for what was called continuity of government, defined in Executive Order 12656. Under Rex 84, or the Readiness Exercise 1984, the so-called American Constitution will be suspended, and the federal government, along with this international entity, will assume full authority to detain whoever they deem necessary, for however long they deem necessary.
Reagan was elected to the presidency, he installed Louis Giuffrida as head of FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency. Giuffrida was an old cold warrior from Reagan's California days whose specialty was suppression of unrest and dissent. Giuffrida, North, and George Bush began to turn FEMA into an instrument of domestic anti-terrorism.
You're dealing with a group of people in the Reagan administration who equated political dissent with treason, and who cannot differentiate between emergency procedures, which I think everyone agrees are necessary, and suppressing political dissent. And with North and Poindexter and Casey, you had a group of people who saw Americans who disagree with them as the enemy.
Now, the key has been, in their planning, has been a war. A war, you have a national, security emergency. You can declare martial law. You can take emergency measures in war that you can't argue in peacetime. And this is where they were heading towards the invasion of Nicaragua. And that's a horror unto itself. But I have the feeling that people miss the broader implications of this invasion when it happens. Now, the Christic Institute, this flawed affidavit, it has a segment on the Rex 84, the detention centers, the FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, which is part of this plan, which is to prepare detention centers and laws and an infrastructure across the country so that when they pull off the invasion, they will be able to sweep 400,000 people off the streets and throw them in detention centers.
Colonel North, in your work at the NSC, were you not assigned at one time to work on plans for the continuity of government in the event of a major disaster?
Mr. Chairman.
I believe that question touches upon a highly sensitive and classified area, so may I request that you not touch upon that, sir.
I was particularly concerned, Mr. Chairman, because I read in Miami papers and several others that there had been a plan developed by that same agency, a contingency plan in the event of emergency that would suspend the American Constitution. And I was deeply concerned about it and wondered if that was the area in which he had worked. I believe it was.
May I most respectfully request that that matter not be touched upon at this stage. If we wish to get into this, I'm certain arrangements can be made for an executive session.
And tragically, the only member who got close was Jack Brooks.
Now, this one I asked the FEMA people, the sober ones there, if they really had this documented, because we talked about this Rex 84 2 or 3 years ago, and the Spotlight had mentioned it, but it wasn't really proven. And they assured me, they said, yes, they have this one from top attorneys within FEMA who have admitted to it, and they got it documented.
One thing we can say with full certainty, FEMA prison camps exist. Dick Cheney's company, Halliburton, confirmed that the government is engaged in a massive construction and preparation exercise to build concentration camps and prisoner facilities all over the country. And they should know, they built them. KBR was contracted by the Department of Homeland Security, a $385 million contract over 5 years. Dick Cheney's partners over at KBR, you know these guys, Kellogg, Brown, and Root, who were involved in the Manhattan Project that manufactured the first atomic bomb. This company has never looked back since, and with increased funding and research into engineering, computer networking, and private military contracts, this company is making a lot more than cornflakes. History proves that KBR is a corporation of death, and a corporation that is not afraid to follow through with its work. And the US government certainly has proven to put their work to use, dropping atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki just months after the Manhattan Project's first successful test. By far the worst terrorist attack that has ever taken place. So the fact that Halliburton and KBR are involved in building hundreds of FEMA prison camps around the country is alarming. Their history should tell us something. They're going to use them. Do you really believe that the US government is going to invest hundreds of millions of dollars on prison camps and not put them to use? Besides, they're not just building them, they're hiring too.
Yes, the re-education camp manual does apply domestically to U.S. citizens. 3 years ago in 2012, they started massive advertising for career specialists in the U.S. to run, quote, re-education camps. They even used the communist Soviet term. You cannot make this up. It's like the Nazis didn't call their death camps. This would be like them actually calling them death camps, to call them re-education camps, because that's a Soviet term for a torture, basically death camp. So in the Soviet re-education term, re-education is death camp. You cannot make this up. They actually use that term. It has the social security numbers, how to process everybody, how to break up the families. We've even filmed the drills, not just the manuals, and they counter and go, oh, it's for overseas. No, it talks about working with local law enforcement, social security numbers, and how the Constitution's suspended. Read it. Let's continue here. National Guard looking for internment resettlement specialist. Okay, mainstream news. Here is the actual document, FM 3-39.40, internment resettlement operations. And it all has dual use overseas, but it says specifically for the U.S.
Military Occupational Specialty, Internment Resettlement Specialist. The Army's Internment Resettlement Specialist plays an integral role in providing a uniform system of handling prisoners and detainees. First and always, these MPs are combat support soldiers, trained to fight. Then as internment resettlement specialists, trained to control and supervise detainees, to ensure humane treatment, and to assist them in returning to a productive life. For this job, you must qualify for a secret clearance. Then, the Army will train you to use specialized equipment to monitor activity, to conduct searches, and to inspect areas where prisoners work and live. Here, you'll train to in-process prisoners and detainees, and to brief them on their rights. In addition, you'll train to inventory and secure property, take photographs and fingerprints, issue personal items, and assign cells. You'll train to conduct prisoner formations and roll calls, to monitor their exercise, recreation, and work areas, to prepare and maintain records, and develop written reports. After your initial entry training and advanced individual training, you'll work supporting military operations day or night in a garrison or field environment, where you may practice emergency procedures, detect and confiscate contraband, and escort prisoners outside the facility. Serving in this MOS can help you transition from the military to the civilian employment sector. In the Military Police Corps, you'll be providing both combat support and law enforcement wherever you go, always upholding our motto, of the troops and for the troops. Military Occupational Specialty, Internment Resettlement Specialist.
At FEMA headquarters and facilities around America, there are extremely shady security guards. It's safe to say that extensive psych evaluations and intensive interviewing processes are being performed on FEMA employees to choose those who perhaps wish to be a police officer or a soldier but couldn't make the cut. Those who could be easily influenced, who wouldn't question authority, and who will be completely subservient no matter how awful the order would be, no matter if it was on their own people. It's hard to imagine, I know, but don't forget, at one point in time, there were normal people running and patrolling every single concentration camp in history.
Doing pretty good.
Say again?
Said I'm doing okay.
Are you with the press?
Yeah.
You take a picture of me?
You're on camera.
I look good?
You're good.
Can I help you?
Nope.
What press you with?
I'm independent.
Get your name?
It is on my badge.
I won't go after your name. Brent Sanders, independent. Okay. All right, thanks.
How you doing?
Can I ask your business?
I'm just out here taking some pictures and video.
Who are you with?
Just myself. Independent media. You're with FEMA?
Yeah.
Can I see that? Can I see your name and badge number?
No.
Is that not policy? You're not a public official?
This is, you're on federal property.
This is not federal property.
No, this is not. But why are you taking pictures?
I'm just gathering content for a story.
Sanders? Will you take it down, please?
No, this is for my protection, actually. I just wanted to get your name and badge number, if I could. Can I ask your business?
I work security right here.
Okay. Can I get your name and badge number?
No.
Why not? Are you not like a public official? Are you not paid by my tax dollars?
I'm not going to answer your questions.
Okay, all you have to do is provide your name and badge number. That's all I need.
I'm not
J. Dillon, FEMA Security.
I just have TV come by.
Am I breaking a law?
No.
Then what's your concern?
People want to know how big this is. Who are these camps for? After 9/11, Bush issued Military Order No. 1, empowering by executive order the detention of any non-citizen as an international terrorist or enemy combatant. Today, that extends to U.S. citizens, even on perceived threats, just like they did with the Japanese Americans before. Everyone will be terrorists that oppose this New World Order. It doesn't matter what color you are or what faith you adhere to. In many cases, social status won't even apply. Is it that hard to imagine that you're a terrorist or a dissident in the minds of these people? Halliburton confirmed back in 2011 that U.S. concentration camps were ready to detain up to 2 million terrorists. You don't make that type of statement unless you were asked to design and build to meet that capacity, and there are more being built as we speak. Not just in the United States, but more have been discovered in the UK as well. On February 17, 2006, in a speech to the Council on Foreign Relations, former Defense Secretary Donald Rumsfeld said, "Harm was being done to the country's security, not just by the enemy, i.e. the Muslims, but also by what he called news informers, who needed to be combated in a contest of wills. So anyone out there spreading the truth, you could make that list. If you are just watching that truth, you could make that list. This is happening, and it has been happening for a long time." In the event of an economic collapse, world war, catastrophic natural or man-made disasters, massive power outages, civil unrest, chemical, biological, or nuclear attack, all of which seem to be an unfortunate reality in our time, there will be dire conditions, no doubt. Concern for the safety of their families, a lack of food, water, medical attention, a constant fear that will be created and will consume the people. It is believed that people are going to willingly run into these camps, the perfect example of order out of chaos. Hollywood has always been good for subliminal messages and foreshadowing events to come. Their methods and intentions is an entirely different topic, but the future of FEMA camps, covert operations, and the globalist takeover of America was broadcasted for millions of people to see in the Season 10 opener of X-Files.
A darker objective.
The takeover of America.
And then the world itself, by any means necessary, however violent, or cruel, or efficient. By severe drought, brought on by weather wars, conducted secretly using aerial contaminants and high-altitude electromagnetic waves, in a state of perpetual war, to create problem, reaction, solution scenarios to distract, enrage, and enslave American citizens at home, with tools like the Patriot Act and the National Defense Authorization Act, which abridge the Constitution in the name of national security. The militarization of police forces in cities across the U.S., the building of prison camps by the Federal Emergency Management Agency with no stated purpose, the corporate takeover of food and agriculture, pharmaceuticals and healthcare, even the military in clandestine agendas to fatten, dull, sicken, and control a populace already consumed by consumerism.
And I encourage you all to go shopping more.
A government that taps your phone, collects your data, and monitors your whereabouts with impunity. A government preparing to use that data against you when it strikes. And the final takeover begins.
The takeover of America.
By a well-oiled and well-armed multinational group of elites that will cull, kill, and subjugate.
Happening as we sit here.
It's happening all around us.
The other shoe waiting to drop?
It'll probably start on a Friday. The banks will announce a security action necessitating their computers to go offline all weekend.
Digital money will disappear.
They can just steal your money?
Followed by the detonation of strategic electromagnetic pulse bombs to knock out major grids.
What will seem like an attack on America by terrorists or Russia.
Or a simulated alien invasion using alien replica vehicles that exist and are already in use.
An alien invasion of the U.S.
The Russians tried it in '47.
You can't say these things.
I'm going to say them tomorrow.
Walmart has partnered up with the U.S. Department of Homeland Security.
Walmart's story has been blowing up the web as people try to figure out exactly what might be going on.
I am here at an undisclosed location in Hagerstown, Maryland, that a convoy of UN armored vehicles and an entire unit is here.
The Phoenix Police Department has confirmed to 3TV that they are supporting Department of Defense training around the city.
You got an underground roadway system here that runs all the way to Maine, to Washington, D.C., to Colorado. It's fully stocked. It runs completely underground. And you can see they've been hauling tons of military